Hi, welcome to another episode of Alta Heron. My name is Rob Runacres and I'm joined by the wonderful Hans Jodland, who is going to introduce this episode.
Thank you. Today we will talk about Longpoint. We will do a little review of Longpoint. Rob will do a review of it. I will just ask questions because I wasn't there because I'm stupid. But we're going to take a look also at two of many great fights. We're going to see Eric Wiggins versus Jake Norwood, and we're going to see Casper Anderson versus Eric Wiggins. So, two really cool fights. And we're going to talk about Longpoint. I think that's it, right?
Yeah, so let's have a look at Eric versus Jake. Eric's probably someone who isn't so widely known over this side of the pond, but he's a great fighter. He's a very charismatic fighter. He was really on a roll for this Longpoint, doing really excellent. And then you got Jake, and the special thing about this is it was, I think, the first Longpoint he was able to compete in longsword. He's done other things, of course. He's well known for his cutting, but he's competing in longsword. And we'll come to that later because it was about how well it was run this year. But he was kind of the kid in the sweet shop with this. He was very happy to be fighting. So anyway, let's have a look at this.
The fights are quite short here, yes. So we might take a look at them a couple of times actually. But yeah,
we'll explain why the fights are so short in a bit. But let's go. Sorry.
And we will see Eric in the left, and Jake will appear soon on the right.
Yeah. So Eric's got this fiercely painted white mask. Mike Edelson is the director, as they're called, as opposed to the referees, they say.
Okay, here starts. Move around. So Jake, he has an aggressive, very powerful style when he fences. But what did you feel that he was even more like, I want to get in there?
I do feel he really just wanted to have some fun and get in there. His measure isn't great in this. I think it was a lot better earlier, but I think he was just overly excited.
Yeah, great. And he also did cutting and armored fighting, and he won armored fighting in came like second in test cuts. So he had a great, some great competition.
But watch this.
Bam! Nice, Eric.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit about the rule set they use in Longpoint? It seems to have worked really well.
Yeah, they've had a lot of experience practicing this. Oof, and again, he gets hit.
Wow, yeah.
And that is effectively the end of the fight.
Yeah.
So you'll see you've got two sessions going on here, two things. I'll just stop the video so we can talk for a second.
Stop it, a nice hug. That's nice. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so quite simply what you have is you have two parts to the scoring. You have the indication that a hit has been made.
Yeah.
And then you have the
that's the normalized. So the judges like show with the flags to the side or up. So say I saw this.
Yeah.
Or I saw
double, so on.
Yeah.
And then you have the quality stroke location of the hit.
Okay.
And what you have then is kind of accumulation of those points, if you will, which comes to the end. What actually happens in the point system is pretty much the same as you'd see in most fencing systems, whereby it's weighted scoring. Certain things do better. If you make a hit that is responded to with an afterblow or something like that, you get less points or no points. Doubles are not rewarded at all. Also, if you got, I think it was called the open double, i.e. both people double without trying to control the opponent's blade, the winner of that fight may have had points deducted from their next fight.
Okay.
So there's a real emphasis on the quality as well as simply making the point. It's more complex than comparable ones we see in, say, Scandinavia. It is different, but it's been practiced very well. They've been practicing this, as I say, in the leagues and all the different competitions, and it really worked well this year. And I think the other thing to mention on that is you saw Mike Edelson there with his group of judges. They had judging teams. So they had a distinct body of people who were working together throughout a time span, who really got to know each other well. And that built up a camaraderie, which really, really worked. It did depend on the strength of the director, as they were known, the referees. We'd known the Nordic areas. But I felt it went brilliantly. It was really, really well executed. And it also meant there was a more relaxed atmosphere in many ways to the judging. Okay. And I think that rubbed off.
Okay, a question. How did they put the judging teams together? What kind of, how were they looking at that? We have this guy, he's really experienced, and this guy is a little newer. How did they talk about that when they put together judging teams?
You probably need to talk to Emma Graf and Ben Michaels and those guys who organised it. But you did have a senior judge. You had two senior judges and you had two junior judges. So certainly they were weighting it according to experience. They were trying to spread things out. But what we didn't have where we may have in other competitions, for example, is we didn't have sort of like this ongoing pool of people who, you had to sort of grab and say, are you free, or just in this sort of reserve or something like that. It was dedicated sets that worked together all the time, and they had a number. They had, they were very much a team.
Did they work together the whole tournament, or for one specific? Oh, the whole tournament. One. That's really nice.
But I think there were 6 teams. Emma, if I can't remember, I'm really sorry. But there were sets of these teams, and so they weren't working the long day, for example. There was a huge amount of staff, and that was very much one of the considerations was to ensure that no one team was being overworked.
Yeah, okay. That's really, really great to have. When you get to work with people for a long time, you calibrate. It's easier to calibrate. It's also easier to get together and talk about things. You learn how the other judges view things and how they move along the arena, so to speak. So it's something to use here as well, I think, in our tournaments here in Europe.
I would certainly recommend it. I think the way it allowed the director to fine-tune things, and I think from some of the observations I made, it allowed that director to be able to speak with some of the judges who may be having some problems, but allow that judge to develop within the team and learn. So that was really very good. It wasn't like at times I've known, because of the constraints we may have had at certain tournaments, we may have had to go, okay, that judge isn't doing so well, we're going to pull them out because they're tired or they're not performing well or something like that, put them aside. This time the judge had the time to learn within that without, I feel, having too much of an adverse effect on the competitors. Something else we really need to add here is the judging teams were actually quite strong. They were very well balanced in that effect, and I think most competitors felt that they were getting pretty good. Pretty good judgment. I'm certainly very happy from what I can see.
Yeah, that's great. Something that you talked about before we started this was the sense of camaraderie all over Longpoint, actually. Not just the judging teams, but in the all over that. It seems to have been a wonderful atmosphere.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm one of the
can we take a look at the first fight again, and then we can talk? Yeah. It's always nice to see people get beat up. So.
Yeah, it's nice to see Joe get hit. And so,
yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah, we ought to just put this on a repeating GIF or just or GIF. Sorry, God, that's going to cause. Okay.
They use 4 judges, right? Or 3? No, 4, right? 1, 2, 3, and the one probably here on the left that we can't see, I guess. Yeah. Okay, cool.
I think so. Was it 3? I can't remember.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Must be 4. Eric moves really, really well. I like watching him fight.
Yeah, very good. He used to wear heavy makeup underneath his mask. He did. It was really scary, actually. He did.
Why did he do that? Why does he do that?
No, it was
I got completely silent when you said it. What? Heavy makeup.
It was very nice, Eric. It was really
okay,
nice.
I can imagine.
Just watch the damn fight.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Nice footwork from Eric, moving, kind of sensing the way Jake will attack him.
Yeah.
And they have used this round arenas all time at Longpoint, right?
Yeah. Now these are made by Pebble Heart Armories, so they're portable. Cool. They're great. You can basically you can stick them in the back of your truck or whatever, and set up your own tournament. It's brilliant.
Okay, cool.
I love these. Okay, so that's
that's cool. Should we just move over to the other fight?
Yeah, let's go for it.
This was an elimination fight, I think, between Eric and Jake, and Eric moved on to meet Casper Anderson in the next fight, I think. And again, this is a fantastic fight. Here we start. Casper on the left, Eric on the right.
Exactly. Kevin Comer is the director of this.
Oof, look at that. That's a beautiful
straight away.
And that's such a textbook example of just taking your opponent's temple, moving his temple, just attacking in that. It's perfect. We got to take a look at that one again after. But here, Eric met a really,
Yeah. So I'm saying, notice the wider measure here compared to the previous fight.
Again, great footwork from Casper. He moves around him and attacks.
Yeah, and using his reach as well, I think.
Yeah. He's also very good at ringen, right?
Yeah, he won a number of medals. He was jingling away by the end of the competition.
It's nice to see.
Lovely guy. Really great guy.
Nice to see fencers who are really versatile. And Longpoint, they have so many. I mean, they have armored fighting, which I think is amazing. We don't have that. That's such a great exchange there.
There was a fight between Josh Paris and Eric, who they agreed they were going to try and kick each other, I believe. But yeah, huge amounts of competitions. You've got the cutting, of course. You've got pair technique. You have a novices competition at the beginning, which is done with people like T School, Axel Pettersson, and co will be there, and they'll be coaching the beginners of those. And that's something I really like. I think that's a really excellent thing. You've got the harness section, which Jake Norwood won. He got lent the armour for this. I think the guy who owns the armour couldn't actually reasons. And Jake won this brilliantly, and Jake then gave this guy the prize. There was you were saying about the camaraderie. I mean, the eliminations in many competitions are quite tense. Sometimes antagonistic. People are looking, to get that medal. Something I really saw in Longpoint was huge camaraderie between opponents, immense generosity. And I know I tend to sort of get very excited about the events I've just had the pleasure of being in. I speak very highly of him. But there is something about particularly the East Coast HEMA scene in America, which is very supportive of each other, really warm and very welcoming. I was talking to Francesco Loda, who was there, and he won the Rapier, and he was saying just how welcoming all the Americans have been. It really is a fabulous event to go to. Something I've got noted I wanted to say here is that we saw Casper there, where his beautiful wife, Kat, was there as well. And there's Vera McMillan, who was the photographer. She had a great husband there, Jamie McMillan. It's a very welcoming event for partners. There are a lot of kids there. I think one of the happiest moments for many spectators was seeing Jake Norwood hit by his children. But it's very welcome. I think a point I wanted to make is looking at Longpoint, along with some of the other European events I've been to at the moment, is I'm noticing an attempt to bring in more partners and bring in kids. And I think it's really important that organisers start considering this. Obviously, as we get older and many people are having kids, it helps them get to events if there is a creche stuff. But it also means that the children are growing up in a HEMA environment. Yeah. And if we are hoping to cultivate a generation of HEMA fighters from a younger age, so they are that much better, this is one way to do it. Longpoint didn't have a creche, but there were lots of kids there. It was very much a family atmosphere. It was very, very positive on that front. It's all good stuff.
Yeah, that's great. But and they're going to move next year to a bigger venue, right? Because they're growing so much, so they have to move. Yeah,
they are growing. Yeah, they're going to central Baltimore. It's going to be on the harbour as well. So it's going to look spectacular. Much more floor space. They're able to arrange the floor space as well, because I think it's a convention centre. Turf Valley, where it was, is a lovely site. The hotel is obviously the main part when you've got the sort of the conference area with it. It does suffer from the fact that it's a limited space. There are other things going on occasionally at the same time. And certainly for the workshops, they're often right the way down. They're always right the way down at the other end, away from the competition. And that meant that there wasn't a sense of flow going around everything. You had it quite separate. And Longpoint is very much a competition-based event. But I was speaking to Jake and obviously Emma Graf and Ben Michaels earlier, and they're very keen to emphasise the workshop element. There are a lot of workshops that happen. There are lectures as well, and they're really hoping to increase those at the new centre next year, as well as the competition. But I mean, the workshops were great this year. They went very well. I think they were well attended, higher attendance. But Turf Valley, just because the logistics is a little bit difficult, so it's looking really, really exciting for next year.
Yeah, cool, wonderful. Let's take a look at the.
Yes, I'll stop writing on and have a look. Okay.
But that's good to hear that the event organizers want to add, make sure that lectures and workshops get that's so beautiful.
Such a lot.
They get their right place in these big events. Now, when we're starting to have really good tournament organization, tournament rules, and everything, we can kind of go back to bring up. Make sure that workshops and events, workshops and lectures aren't forgotten at all. So,
I think it's very difficult. I think, given the size of the competition, so much admin has to go into that workshop.
Yeah.
Needs the space and a couple of people, but a competition needs obviously a bureaucracy. So, I mean, I do wonder: are we going to see the split of these events purely because it's so difficult to try and do these things? Longpoint had 200.
Here's the kick. No, here.
Yeah,
the kick.
Yeah, here we are.
This is probably the best kick I've seen in HEMA. This is really how he kicks, so he really falls down, and afterward he could just have finished him if you wanted. So that's a great way.
Well, you hear that, Casper? You've got a great kick to you, so that's good to hear.
Yeah.
But no, I think Longpoint here, we had 250 people at the event. If it's going to get bigger, and with the majority of those being competitors, if it's a competition thing, who knows where it's going to be. I know that the team really want to keep in the workshops and the academic side. It's just, is it possible? I mean, if you compare with, say, Dijon, which traditionally has not been so keen on the competition to that side, but the first day has its series of lectures that are very well attended, and then you get the workshops. So they're able to concentrate on it on that side, but not so much on the competition. When we start to hit 300 people attending, I don't know. I don't know whether it's going to be feasible, but we shall see. And we're just seeing Kevin Comer explaining slow motion kicking.
And then he did this, and then he just fell, and then wow. And it was like
Paolo Gianni just thinking, I just want a coffee, please let me go.
Okay, cool.
So,
anything else you want to add about Longpoint?
I think there's a couple of things I want to say. Arto Fama was there, who's a great fencer, and he worked his way up, and I can remember speaking to him early last year where we were comparing notes about hating being competitors. This is going to be on my epitaph, isn't it? It wasn't about a fence that hated competition. Arto is coming on so well, and it was really good to see him there, and, you know, and do well as well. So that was very good. Something on the Rapier. There are a lot of, I really like how the Americans are coming on, particularly Tony Hall and Tim Kaufman, both of them in the farms of various things, doing really well. I think what I'd say about the Rapier there is endemic to a lot of the Rapier that we're seeing in all competitions now. A lot of it is becoming speed-based, as is the way. It's still difficult to judge, though. I think the judges did really nicely this year, actually, at Longpoint. Really pleased with that. Also, standardization of blades may be an issue. In saber and in longsword, we may see a range of some things, but we do see a certain standardization. We had blades that were quite light and whippy and let's call them épée-like, rather. They weren't épée. We had some very stiff blades that didn't flex, possibly. And I think in other areas in HEMA, we're starting to see even retractable blades in Rapier, which fills me with horror. Yeah.
Oh my God. Where? Have we seen
there's a certain maker who I won't say, but they've got a cylinder, and then the last half is kind of like an épée blade that retracts. And I know that on certain of the demonstrations, they haven't retracted too well.
Does it come with fake blood as well, or
possibly real blood? I mean, I think the issue for me is that there are two things we mentioned before on episodes, that Rapier is a misleading term, because Rapier covers lots of different types of swords over a relatively short period of 150 years or so. But it's difficult to standardize. However, we're going to have to do something on this, because we're seeing very light blades versus very heavy blades and stiff blades going on. So I don't really know where we're going to go with this, but we are getting a little bit anachronistic in some ways, where you've got a guy with an 18th century blade fighting a guy with a 16th century blade, or at least style. You know, and I don't really know, but I think that's something that concerns me. There are some great fighters coming out, though, just on that. So Mackenzie Ewing was a guy I had the pleasure of coaching. And he emphasised that he's a fantastically athletic guy, really fast, but relying on speed, which sometimes the Rapier competitions will reward, as opposed to some of the control. But he's working on that, and he's actually part of the Atlanta guys thing with Keith Cotter Riley's group. They're looking really promising. The New York guys as well, as I mentioned, Tim and Toby, and of course Virginia Academy of Arms. Those chaps. There's some lovely Rapier coming out. I think the issue is going to be the weapons that are being used and possibly the rule sets. I haven't got an answer for it, but I think that's something we're going to have to watch.
The problem with Rapier is that we are using our own. I mean, if you go to an event, the organizer is not going to have blades for you there. So we are using our own weapons. So it's very individual. And I don't know if we should have. First, I think we should start having like 42-inch blades or so. Everyone has to have 42-inch blades, and they have to be a certain, make sure you have at least maybe one darkwood or Danelli blade that is kind of similar in the flex, and if everyone has that, fine.
I mean, yeah, I've been thinking about this, and it's on the one hand, I worry because it gets into that some of the sports fencing side that we wanted to avoid, and a guy who does Capoferro with a swept tilt 50-inch blade, should they end up being given a small light cup hilt, or conversely, should a guy with a light cup hilt be given same? I don't know, but on the other hand, I think bring your own sword does help. It does keep that. I'm just maybe I'm just worried about the two extremes: the very light whippy, almost epic blades at one end, and non-flexible stiff blades. We shall see. Lots of these.
Well, we'll see in the future, but I think we will kind of maybe it will be fine if we just kind of narrow it down just a little bit to get away from the extremes, as you said. I think then we'll be fine. So, okay, anything more on Longpoint?
I think it's a great event. I think it's certainly an event for people who, even if you're relatively new at HEMA and just want to have a look, and you're in the States, it's definitely worth going to. If you're thinking of spending the cash and going abroad to an event in the States, I'd kind of go to that one because of the range of stuff that's going on there. Yeah. And as I say, actually, it's just the welcoming atmosphere. It's really well run. It's very welcoming, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, right. And they have stuck to their rules. Maybe they make some changes every year, I think, in rules, but they kind of have stuck to their way of doing it, and now it works really, really well, it seems. And
yeah,
so
but I think that's
wonderful.
I think one of the things is that struck me about some of the American HEMA is they're willing to experiment. I think that's why you've got such a range of different competitions going on there. They have the range of experimentation, and they are quite prepared to be challenged and have the argument. Jake has a golden rule that you can complain, whatever you want to about Longpoint, but say it to them. Have that. Don't go and Facebook it. Bitch about things. Actually have that, and I think that's a lovely philosophy for any competition, really. But I had a fabulous time. I thought it was great.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay. All right then.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're done.
So, Hans, thank you very much.
Thank you.